Fans Beyond Wrestling, this is Denver, Colorado, the man, not the place. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Positive Contact, brought to you by Independent Wrestling TV. Head on over to iwtv.live, sign up using promo code BEYOND, get a 5-day free trial. And if you want to support Beyond Wrestling during this strange time, you can stay on after that free trial as a paid subscriber. Go through our archive, watch all of the best that Beyond Wrestling has to offer. And today's guest is Solo Darling. Solo, what's the best way that the fans can support you as well?
Hello, DC. Definitely check me out on Instagram at Regulation Solo Darling. There's at BirdMBXD account too if you want to hit up me and Willow. Our Patreon is at Solo Darling. And if you want to go to the Big Cartel where you want to get all the cool swag or hit us up for anything, we've been doing like recordings and stuff like that for people. Definitely just go to www.solodarling.com. Patreon is cool because we put our podcast on there, so you're going to get the bird and the bee doing the talk, and you'll get early access and all of the bloopers and all the mess that we make. So it's pretty dope.
Excellent. Solo, how did you get into professional wrestling? I feel like I should know this considering that we've been working together for like 4 years now, but I actually have no idea.
I was in college for chemistry and sports medicine, dual degree, Bachelor of Science, and I decided with my person at the time that this was a dream that definitely has an expiration date on it. You know, I love chemistry. That was my goal, and I love music. I love all these things, but I love professional wrestling in just this different way, where I may not be able to name all the names that happened in this era to this era, but I just loved the pageantry and the soap opera and all of it as a whole from a micro view. So I dropped out of college and moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and started wrestling in 2008.
You started training the OVW?
Yeah.
Like not on a developmental deal, just on your own?
Yeah, they had just split from that, and then like that August after in 2008 is when I started training.
You watched wrestling growing up?
Yeah, no one in my family did. Like I had some cousins that did, and I was always like the body for them. You know, like I had 2 boy cousins that were like my older brothers. Like, I think we can power bomb her down the stairs. It's cool. I'll catch her, I think. So I was a crash test dummy growing up. But yeah, I was the only one to watch it.
What's your first memory? What's the first thing you remember from wrestling growing up?
I liked the Hulk, and I liked Ultimate Warrior and Savage, but I used to try and rip my shirt, so my mom, to try and play along with this thing that she didn't understand or wasn't keen on at all, would like pre-rip a shirt for me. And so I was like barely 4 or 5, and then I would just like wait for him to do it, and then I'd do it, and then I'd run around the house, and I started to have to wear layers because I just run around with no shirt, so she had to fix that for me. That was my first memory.
Who would you consider inspirations growing up from wrestling, if any?
Guerrero, Sensational Sherry is my all-time favorite. I love her. And oh my God, I mean Jericho, just everyone from that era. Benoit, incredible. Malenko, the Rhodes. Like I've had all of them in different ways kind of like blend in and give me a little bit of something.
Let's jump back into OVW. What was training like there? Like, what did you have to pay for tuition? Like, what was lodging? Who were some of the people you were training with? Like, paint a picture of what OVW is like, split from WWE.
Oh, do you ever meet a girl at the wrong time after she's been broken up with, and you're like, dang, like they just have so many good qualities. All right, they're really hurt right now. Let's just go through it together. So I paid, I want to say it was like $4,500 for like intro, 45 or 5,000 or something like that. And so say you're part of the ring crew, you get in there, you're there all week. Like the great thing about it was that you're wrestling every day and you have a show on Wednesday. So and then they would do like traveling. So once you got past the beginner level, you were doing the shows. So you would wrestle in schools or just in different indies all over the place. They just take their little show and like travel. So at one point you're getting matches like 4 or 5 times a week, and then you're doing tape study once a week, and like they really get the reps in. So that was really wild. I got to advanced rather quickly. I still hadn't learned well how to run the ropes yet.
Well, let me ask you this because I feel like this is important to touch on, and like I don't, I'm just going to ask it. Did you get advanced quickly because you were a girl and it's kind of like women's wrestlers are more of an attraction, or at least that's the way things seem to be treated 10 or 15 years ago? Because you're saying that you couldn't run the ropes at that point.
I definitely think there's a shortage of girls. Girls were in and out, but like, for instance, I constantly missed Heidi. Like, her and I would like cross paths. But I was never there at the same time as some of the girls that literally were around when I was around. We just weren't there. So it was a small group of girls. I was thrown live very quickly because I was a girl. I was just doing ring crew. And I would just like pick up all the jackets and bring them to the back. And then I was just like sitting on the side, and then they had a main eventer that, needed a valet. And so I was still learning how to like lock up, and they were like, here, do this. And they were like, we want to do this gimmick, where like he's full of himself, but you're in love with him. And I was like, sensational Sherry and Shawn Michaels. Like, yeah, I'll do whatever. So you can see old pictures. I'll send you some where I have like the big makeup, and I was wearing corsets and things that I don't know how to strap in fully. But I think definitely being a girl when they didn't have a lot of girls hedged my bets. Yeah.
How did you hear about OVW, and what made you, because you came from New York and moved out to Louisville?
Oh yeah, I was in Boston too for college. So I went up there and just missed San Martino's school. Like, there's a school, but I couldn't get to it. And so when I moved to Louisville because they had a developmental. So I was like, well, I want to go to the place where I can do the thing. Because I actually didn't know about the indies.
Mm-hmm.
My guy was telling me about it, and I was like, I don't know. We watched a video of like Cena in California. Like he was showing me these things, and I was like, oh, so this is like music, because I was a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you just got to do like, little bar shows, and then you do like the big show. Okay, this makes sense now. I get this.
But it was very much a path to WWE when you first entered.
Yeah. When we first moved there, and then we were collecting our, tuition, and we had it, and like they had separated. So we were like, okay, well, we're still gonna do this, So there's a lot of people that were like leaving, and new people coming in, like us. I think I'm the only one left from like that original class. So yeah, it was just kind of like dive in. Where's the best school? Because I grew up in a very academic home. So my mom was always like, well, where's this? Okay, now we got to get the top 10. We just try for Ivy League, do all that. So I was like, what's the Ivy League of professional wrestling?
Sure. And I think what happened is OVW, they relocated as FCW, right? Because they closed OVW and Deep South at the same time, relocated as FCW. And I remember a couple people could do paid tryouts, or maybe even like 3 months of training that led to like a match that they would film at FCW. But I don't know that anybody came through that. It kind of seems more like maybe even a money grab than it was an opportunity to actually like backdoor into the WWE system. Did you feel when you were at OVW like this is still the best route to get to WWE, or once you were there, did the goals kind of change? Talk us through that.
The goals definitely changed. I had a couple of very personal happenings that really soured me on professional wrestling, and I almost didn't make it out, and I was convinced otherwise. I was convinced that I was in the wrong for them, and I decided that this cannot be the only representation of professional wrestling, where a girl's voice doesn't matter, and it's very kind of like close-minded in that way. And there was a lot of carny that I learned, not in the funny way that we like to tease about it. And so that negative energy, and I know everyone was going through a hard time. I know everyone was, sometimes you catch people and they're not at their best, and that's okay. Everybody fluctuates. So, I empathize with them, but that negativity and their struggle kind of really put me in a spot. Like, I need to learn something else. I need to go somewhere where they're going to teach me, everything I really want to know and how to expand on that. Not just like, yeah, you don't need to do that stuff. You're a small girl. Like, I didn't know how to do a body slam until I got to Truth Martini, when I trained with him for 7 weeks.
Was that the next step after OVW?
Yeah, I moved to Florida. I learned on the road for years. I met up with Lexi Fife, and she would teach me sometimes because they have the Slam Shack and they do customs and things. And then whenever we had extra time, the girls would just show me stuff. And I was just always like, okay, great. I'm learning this today, or I'm learning this move today, or different roles. And yeah, it was super great to have all of them there, from like Shine and Shimmer.
When you were at OVW, were there any female trainers, or was it all male trainers?
Male trainers.
Was there ever any intergender wrestling?
Just in training.
But doesn't that, and then I don't want to get in too deep as far as like people acting carny and stuff like that, but also kind of seeing the disconnect between, being belittled for being a female performer, but also kind of being shot up the ladder quickly because, somebody recognizes that as a commodity. To me, there's a mismatch there. And so it's always so strange to me that the majority of the schools in the United States are all ran by male competitors. So for a female wrestler that's breaking into the industry, you're wrestling with men in order to learn how to wrestle in most instances. So it's always so strange to me that there's still such a stigma about intergender wrestling. But you said that you had the opportunity to travel down to Florida, and then with Lexi Fife, that was an opportunity to learn with other women's wrestlers. Who were some other people that were instrumental around that time?
One of my first Florida indie matches was with Mia Yim. And Daphne was around at the time. She was trying to help manage at Shine and stuff like that. And I'd gotten the opportunity to go to Shine right around the time when they do a Shimmer taping. So you had a lot of international girls over. So I got to meet a slew. Kelly Skater and Rhea O'Reilly is one of my closest. It just all of them at the time. There's Evie or Dakota Kai. They would all kind of be there. And I thought this is awesome. So I would get to the shows really early, and they had like a ring crew. So we didn't really, even though I felt that anxiety to like, I need to pick up a board and I need to put it in a place. They had it all covered. So I would just, as soon as the ring was ready, get in, and my opponent I would be like, oh, can you please show me everything? So they would show me all their set list and all their arsenal. And that's how I learned everything as we were going. So I kind of came up with my original move set on the fly. I'm like, oh, I know this person does this. And I really like the bulldog up, the buckle and around. Okay, all right, cool. This is how I do that. When I started to get towards the sugar creature. So try to find my way into a character there.
Yeah, I mean, even from, by modern independent wrestling standards, I mean, this kind of sounds like a bit of an unconventional path. But it sounds like, obviously, people took a liking to you and people were looking out for you, that they would be willing to kind of assist with stuff because day of show can be hectic.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it was specific to the Florida area, specific to the Shine promotion, specific to you? But what was it about that camaraderie that it seems like it's less cutthroat?
Since Shine was just up and running, because I started at Shine 9, a lot of the girls were all focused on Shimmer. And that group of Shimmer girls we're all stressed out together because we all want to put on the best show. But everyone is just kick-ass and hardcore and wants everyone to do really well and wants everyone to oh, that thing that you do, you just pick up your leg a little higher. So everyone's really ready to support each other because we all want the entire show to be its best. And this is just way before Shimmer was just a thought in the sky. So the girls that would come to do Shine to try and help, the newbies out at Shine that were up and coming, and all us green girls, then they would just be okay, here, and give immediate feedback and be very critical of everything to try and kind of elevate us more. So I really kind of lean on the girls for that we're all already close from different places and from Shimmer. So they already had that built in. And I was like, hey, I'll do everything. It's fine. Whatever you want me to do. You want me to fall there? That's cool. I'll do that.
I mean, honestly, that sounds really encouraging because we know on an independent level, sometimes, even unintentionally, things can be really cliquey. So that was just, in general, it was just if you're along for this ride, we're going to do everything we can to help you out.
Yeah. And then any way I could help too, I would, there are things that I wasn't really necessarily good at the time. I had started sewing because they had put me with Heidi. And we were like, we can't afford tag gear. And I was like, Mom, because grandma sews. I was like, help. And she was like, okay. So I got a little machine and just stuck fabric together and started sewing. So then I would try to help fix the girls' gear and offer oh, I'll do makeup for you because I didn't have a match or something, and try to make sure I use my car. And I had a 2-floor townhome because Florida's cheap as hell. So any of the internationals, I try to just offer up what I could while I was learning as a way to thank them for their hospitality.
That was one of the things that I was discussing with Yuta is sometimes people think that paying your dues means oh, today's the day that every single person in wrestling is going to chop me in training. And it's really not like that. But there are some opportunities for people, even when they're not necessarily on the show, to really become more ingrained within the organization itself by being able to help out with stuff like that. When, especially, I mean, coming from New York area, most people don't have cars.
Yeah.
So, or most people don't have places that they can help with the crash. And I mean, especially if you're bringing in international wrestlers and if they're going to be there for kind of odd schedules, it can be tough for the promoter to be able to afford, a week's worth of hotel rooms and stuff like that. So if there's ways to make arrangements, it builds those relationships and, it seems like a valuable way to network. Was your goal with Shine then to get to Shimmer, or was it just at that point, learn as much as you can?
Uh, always learn as much, but I wanted to learn as much so that I could go to Shimmer. Like, that's where everyone was. That's where I wanted to be. So, and then keep learning about like, okay, and these are the top places. So like, I have to like go there. And intergender wrestling always just appealed to me. But I was around, like, it only took when Heidi and Kim were like around and also doing it. And then I was like, oh, that's a thing we can do. Like, for like that, okay. And then like bring it back and learn a little bit more on the back end about it. And I just think it's great. So I just wanted to follow and keep it going with them.
What was the next step after Shine? Was that when you started training with Truth Martini, or did you get a foot in the door with the opportunity on a Shimmer Live event first?
I did go with Shimmer first. Truth Martini I met 2015-ish, around there. They were doing a lot of Women of Honor stuff. And I just so happened to like, I was with Jimmy, and then I met Truth, and then Truth had that school. So we would go out to Detroit all the time because I just loved it. I just was like, oh, this is like a different Bronx. That works for me. And so we'd go there and then work out at the school. And then Truth was like, yeah, like, I think I want to help out these girls. I've never run a girl class before. I was like, let's do it. And so I actually lived with Truth on and off for those like 7 to 11 weeks. Because I stayed a little bit longer to try and like get those basics and fundamentals down. But it was awesome. And then we wound up just covering all of the beginning stuff and then stacking our move set basically at the end and the back half. So it was really dope.
What was the first match you had with Shimmer?
Oh, Rhea O'Reilly was in it. Actually, she was my first match at Shine, and Rhea O'Reilly was in my first match at Shimmer. I know we had like a 6-man that day, and we had done a tag. So my actual, like, my debut technically was a Mania weekend in New Orleans. And then I was concussed, and then I was off the weekend. But like, I guess the match at Shimmer at Berwyn Eagles, that you'd be like, bam, this Rhea O'Reilly was in it. But it was me and Heidi tagging before she tagged with Evie. So that was a wild.
So how did you and Heidi come together as a tag team?
Sal thought that our purple hair was dope. So he put us together because we had purple hair. And her and I are like, hey, it's like the beginning of Step Brothers, like, sup? So you have purple hair? Okay, dope. What do we do? And so we just like try to like come together with our shtick.
It's just as simple as that. Just, hey, you guys have this one similar attribute, like tag team.
And we were like, what? I mean, we do have a lot of similarities, but like we had to talk about that to figure it out. We were on this like blind tag date, basically.
Is that exciting, or is that frustrating?
We thought it was frustrating that that's why they put us together, because we're like, what about like, we love punk and we love this and we have these other things, or she's more of a straight lace and I at the time was like sugar creature, so like that's a combo we want to see. But we were like, really, because of the hair? Because this could change next week, like what? But it was really fun to like them be like, hey, let's get to know each other.
Did you have the input at that time to flesh it out to be able to create those dynamics, or was it just like the purple hair brigade?
We quickly were like, okay, we need something else other than this purple hair. And so we just kind of like, we were at Lexi's and we started to talk about it a little bit and then just hang out and then just talk about stuff, or we would text back and forth and come up with like what color scheme we wanted. So we're like, we agree on these colors, we like these things. And so it was relatively easy. And I just tried to absorb as much as possible from her. She went to a fantastic school. She's an amazing worker. And at the time, I really was trying to get my feet. Like, all I wanted to do was wrestle more. And I had kind of been like, I guess stylized as a comedy wrestler. And I was like, really, I don't know that I'm that funny, but I'll try. So I was desperately trying to do more than character work. and she wanted to do more character work. So in promos, I would just try to like pop her and be like outrageous and silly. And then Daphne took a liking to us and became our manager. And so that was just like fun and wacky.
How did you come up with the sugar creature persona?
It's actually from growing up. My parents are split forever. Like that's all I've known them as. And so I'd go to Long Island and hang out with my dad. And there was problems at home because he's just not well. So I would leave the house and I'd walk up to 7-Eleven, like Jane Silent Bob, and just sit in the front and drink a Slurpee. And the Slurpee was always there. Like I got my first job, got a Slurpee. It was just something I always went to feel good. It was like my totem in life. And I was like, man, if that just brings me some joy, and like Popeye's dope. Like what if I just like charged up a bunch? And one of my friends at a Comic-Con was like, you should get these ears, these cat ears. And I was like, yeah, what if I wear them on the next Shine? And then I did. And then it was like, oh, I like wearing these. I wonder if I could wear a tail. And then Jimmy Jacobs was like, you should keep the tail on. I was like, how do I do that? Let's do that. And then I started to learn more on how to like sew, and I found a tail lady, and it just kind of snowballed. And I just kind of leaned on all of my like loves for like, you know, Alice in Wonderland with like the drink me and eat me with the lollipop. And I wanted to use the lollipop as like the savage elbow where like it gets hit on me and then I charge up and it's another way to go wild. And it just kind of like, it was just so easy after that because it was a part of me that really did bring me joy. And all I wanted to do was give someone else peace of mind for like 5 minutes away from their life.
You feel like you outgrew doing the sugar creature, or it was just time for a fresh coat of paint? Do you think it's something you'll eventually come back to?
Me and DJ Dub have thought of several returns. She'll never be the same. She's gone through a lot. She's gone through a lot in this life, and LuFisto cut the tail and then wound up eating fluff live. And it was really funny because she was trying to not cough on camera. And, you know, she broke the lollipop because she was like, no more gimmicks. It was really funny. So she breaks it and it bounces off the mat and hits the ceiling at Berwyn and almost hits a fan. It like, just the fate of that lollipop went right in front and everyone was like, I think if she did come back, it would have to be a Pet Cemetery type thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we have enough Danhausen in the world that you know would have the power to bring that to fruition.
So you put a lot of thought into this.
I love.
You're not just riffing right now, yeah.
I love it. I love storytelling and characters and comics, and I really like this Wasp-esque thing I've become. I needed to grow, and there was a lot of aggression and pent up anger that I had over the years where I was like, why does nobody get this? I'm wearing a tail. Why don't we understand this? So when I went to Chikara and they said, we're going to take all your accessories away, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I drove back to Connecticut thinking about it the whole time. And then just used my other loves to try and like, oh, well, they can see this side of me now.
So the move from the Midwest, Detroit, brought you to Connecticut?
Yeah.
Stanford area, pretty close to where you grew up, right? Not too far from New York.
Oh, quick drive. Yeah, quick drive.
I know that it was around that period of time that you debuted working with me with the Women's Wrestling Revolution debut event, which was in April of 2016. Actually, even though I said that we were going to keep this content evergreen and not date it by bringing up any specific dates, but it looks like it was 4 years ago today. Did you know that?
Oh my God, I did it. That's amazing. Yeah. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I loved that day. I was so nervous.
What do you remember about that day? Because you know, once you tell your side of it, I'm gonna give a little bit of information to kind of how WWR came about, which I've never really told before.
I know that I wanted Beyond, and I know I didn't know how to get there. And I know I loved everyone on the card. I was like, well, this card's wild. And I was like, oh my God, look at all these people here. And like Candace being just like everybody in general that you were working with WWR. So I just remember being really excited and really nervous. I mean, like, man, I hope like, cause it's like New England, it's north, super north. Like, I really hope that this like sugar creature thing like makes sense up there. I remember worrying about that. Are they gonna like me? And I just remember being nervous to talk to you and then just like, hi, there's girls I know, okay, and like probably had way too many Red Bulls for that hour of the day. So I was probably like, I was just really jazzed up to be there.
We never worked together, and when I was running WSU for a couple of years, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I came in when it was Hyde.
Lucky you. WSU was no WSU was cool at the time because it was like kind of a, I don't want to say we didn't do it just because it was a status thing, but that's kind of what it became, was like, look where Beyond Wrestling is right now, that they're able to acquire a separate promotion. And I've had talks with Biff Busick going back years now, where we're like, we really firmly believe that like women's wrestling is going to end up being the future of professional wrestling. So like it wasn't just like some fly by night, like, hey, the Mick is selling WSU for $2,000, whatever we ended up paying for it. Like, let's get on this. Like, there was a lot of pieces that fell into place that really made it seem like it was a good opportunity. And for the time that I spent with WSU, it was a cool experience, but it just seemed like it was snake bitten right from the start. Because like just that first show that we did, even in the NYWC building, like there were just so many issues, and then having to move to working with CZW, and inevitably getting to the point where it seemed like DJ wanted more to do with it and less to do with me. It worked out because when I sold WSU, I had enough money to buy the first championship melt food truck.
Nice.
So, that's obviously turned out to be a good venture. But the reason that Women's Wrestling Revolution came about is I was fed up with running live events at FET Music. And we had announced that Beyond Wrestling was going to do our FET finale at the end of 2015. And that was going to be it. We had other opportunities, and it seemed like at that point maybe Beyond Wrestling was defined by running at FET. So we needed to expand our horizons just so we wouldn't be controlled by this one venue. And shortly thereafter, they wanted wrestling. So even though I felt like we had a lot of unfair treatment, maybe some of it was misunderstandings, I said, I'm not going to betray my fan base and come back with a Beyond card. We just did the finale. But I would absolutely like to start a women's wrestling organization if there's any interest and support there. So that's actually how the first WWR card came about, was kind of like dipping our toes into the water to see, are we going to reestablish our relationship with FET Music? We did 2 shows at FET. First show went off without a hitch. I thought it was awesome. The second show was supposed to be the day before American Rana 16, and they booked some like private band or something, and they ended up screwing up the entire schedule, because a lot of times, as you had mentioned with customs, sometimes it's easier to coordinate the schedule if you've got a lot of wrestlers that are going to be traveling in, if somebody else is running customs the day before or the day after. So we ended up running the second WWR show the same day that customs was scheduled, as a result of FET changing the schedule. The day that we were supposed to run the third show at FET, which ended up not happening, we ran it at Aurora in Providence. FET got shut down again for violent crime on the block. That was the second time that had happened, and just would have also been in conjunction with the show, because that happened to us for Beyond Wrestling Making Moves event in September of 2014. So it's kind of funny how things come together. But the reason that I wanted to kind of lay all that groundwork to bring it up is because of my work with WSU and because of my work with Beyond Wrestling. I felt very passionate about the Women's Wrestling Revolution promotion. I was extremely happy with the roster that we put together. There was like an immense amount of thought that was put into it. And it was like, who are some of the New England wrestlers like Belmont or like Lish that weren't getting enough love? Who are some like real workhorses, like Kimberly and Lufisto? Who are some of the wrestlers that have kind of added visibility by some of their appearances on TV, like Deanna Purrazzo and Santana Garrett, who had never wrestled up until that point? And then, you had a match with Belmont on that show, which ended up leading to a tag match with you teaming with Candice LeRae against Belmont and Vanette. As they were, kind of in their black and blue faction, which never seemed to work out because of timing issues and stuff like that. But, WWR is one of those things where it frustrates me because I think it has so much potential, and it's always just been one of those things where we've never, flat out, we've never had enough fan support as far as people buying tickets in person to help us take us to the level that I think that it's capable of. Even though the online distribution has always been really good, What are your thoughts just in general as far as women's wrestling live events? What are some of the better experiences that you've had? Some of the more well-attended events? Maybe thoughts on getting more fans in the building?
Yeah, it's man, it's such a wild card to me because I didn't know any of it. And then all I had was that for a while because I would just kind of focus on like Shine. And then there was Shimmer. And then I found WWR. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is like a thing. How many of us are there? These promotions, right? There's not many. There'd be pop-up shows here and there, but I don't think it gets the love in general it deserves. The most steady crowds have been WWR and Shimmer. And even with Shimmer, it maxes out, but it's at Berwyn. So it's like a nice cozy, and like I feel like I know most of them that attend now, right? And some of them are my patrons, so I have a Discord now where I'm like, oh, you remember that show? I don't. Please tell me about it. So it's been it has like a real like tight knit atmosphere. I think like the fans in general just participate a different way. And it's always been kind of an enigma to me as to why, like, right, you put in so much effort in WWR, and all the girls do. Like, we all just really want it to like skyrocket. And I'm not sure why the attendance is different. I think the viewers of women's professional wrestling in general they digest it differently than when it's just a man's show or even an intergender show. It's hard for me to put those goggles on, though.
Well, I mean, when I did the first WSU show in Deer Park, I remember an incident where one of the fans tried getting into the locker room to take pictures of the wrestlers while they were changing. And while I was out producing it, luckily, I mean, you're laughing but it's just like it's so completely unacceptable.
Yeah,
in no other walk of life would anybody ever try that. And thankfully,
it's
we had
horrifying.
some of the male wrestlers, because we did a Beyond card earlier in the day, that were able to stop that and then notify me of it. But I remember specifically with WWR wanting to try and replicate the atmosphere of a Beyond Wrestling event, because I always thought that even though there was so much talent on the women's wrestling shows, there was something about the atmosphere that was always lacking. And I've always really liked the standing room only format, because I think that when you're standing, it's more of the energy of a concert than it is the energy of a play. And we know that wrestling can have elements of both. But when you're standing ringside, when you can literally feel the canvas, you're more engaged.
Yeah.
I remember being really satisfied coming out of that first WWR show with the environment overall. But then the other thing was women's wrestling, at least up until that point, was always like weirdly treated as like an extreme premium, where some of the tapes were like almost expensive to the point of being inaccessible. And not to diminish the value, but knowing what I was able to accomplish with the Beyond Wrestling YouTube channel, one of the driving ideas behind WWR was, let's replicate that by starting a channel and getting all these matches online. If somebody else is footing the bill for it anyway, anything after that is gravy. So that was one of the reasons that we wanted to make sure that there are as many matches as possible going online. Do you remember doing any of the WWR events and getting maybe more recognition or more people talking about the matches and stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah, that was a bigger plan. It was, for me, it felt like like a baby Shimmer, right? Because it had just started, and like I just knew that Shimmer had a lot of history, and I felt the same kind of like platform leap with that in different areas. So for me, it's like spreading out on the map, and like maybe people don't get to see Shimmer, and the DVDs there are different. There was no streaming or anything like that, so it's kind of in its own bubble. So it's like I don't really have access to those matches just yet. But then I get to do this of that same like caliber and excitement, and people are standing. That, I feel like that was the first time that had done a show where like everyone's around, and which is really exciting. I love it. I would rather people stand around the ring. I feel very close to the fans that way. And they always catch like all my expressions. I don't mean to like emote. But I feel like WWR definitely was huge for me. It was definitely huge.
Oh, you were talking about Heidi, talking about Kimberly, obviously pursuing the path of women's wrestling, but also wanting to get involved in the intergender wrestling.
Yeah.
What were some of your first high-profile intergender matches? or did it take you a while in order to be able to get some big ones lined up?
I'd have to think it
Like,
was
if
between
it,
like,
I'm sorry.
I think I would be at Chikara. I'd started with Chikara, National Pro Wrestling Day 2016, and then like finished out my WSU date or two because I had like one or two left, and then started like I was training with them and then debuted. But because like I think I was like, the only girl on the roster with Kim at the time, like Kim had just left or was leaving, so I kind of only had Intergender. And I remember tagging with Travis Huckabee. And so we eventually had some higher profile matches together because we were trying to get the tag titles. And I want to say it's going to be Hollow Wicked, but I have to go back and compare what I had done with you and see if that date versus where.
Well, as a women's wrestler, is it like difficult? Like, is it at what point do you take the reins on your career and say, I want to compete against women, I want to compete against men? Is that something that a promoter pitches you on? Is that something that you pitch to a promoter? In your case, is it just something that came about organically because you started with Chikara, but you had wanted to anyway, or like?
I think that definitely that was a goal of mine. It's like I want to work for Beyond. I want to work for Chikara, where I have Shimmer. Like I want to go to Japan, and then I got to go like right around that time. So like I had these things, and I just was like, well, what's the path to get there? Like start at the end and go backwards, and like what do I need to do? I just remember always and still starving for feedback because learning before matches all the time and only really having Truth Martini for like 11 weeks. I hadn't really had a class since OVW. So I was like, and I didn't really know about seminars. I didn't have someone to tell me how to dress. I didn't have that person that was like, don't do that with your face, put this on instead. Maybe less is more on the face. Nobody was there for that. So I was just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. And then I remember you giving me feedback after the first match. And I just remember like I welled up inside because I was like, please tell me more forever. I will do whatever forever for you. Because you gave me feedback after a long time of none of that. So that was really important. And then wanting to intergender and knowing it was going to be like default at Chikara. And I could finally figure out who I am as a person without focusing on, you're a women's wrestler, which you're reminded every day. Guys aren't reminded that every day. They're just a wrestler. It was very comforting, and it was like easy to start kind of like seeing what I do like. And maybe I have some time to breathe and figure out what else do I want to do with my career.
Well, I mean, going from starting wrestling 2009, by the time you started with Chikara in 2016, a lot of people wouldn't continue their training at that point, and I think that that's like, a huge compliment. Like something that fans don't really know that they should know is that, like, and again, not to obviously, um, everybody takes different paths, but I have a tendency, at least around the time that WWR started, like we really wanted to give back specifically to the women's wrestling community. And like even a couple years later, like trying to get seminars set up where it's like, we'll, as an organization, foot the bill for these training opportunities. And it was kind of like, in general, and again, I'm generalizing, just nobody chews my head off. A lot of the women's wrestlers were not as interested as what I would have anticipated some of the men's wrestlers to be if they had an opportunity to basically get free training. So I think that that's incredible that, in every iteration of your career, it's always come back to what can I do to continue to learn more? And I think personally that it was, with the time that you had when you started with Chikara is really, I mean, if you would agree, is when your career started to skyrocket.
Yeah, for sure. I feel very thankful that I ran into him at a Bronx seminar with Willow. In fact, that we went to this seminar in the Bronx, and I was like, hi, I know you. I looked you up. I've watched things of you. This is me talking to Quack for like the first time. And I was like, I have a tail, and I want to know how to do that better. And I want to be the best person that wears a tail. I'm pretty sure there's another girl that wears a tail too, Chris Wolf, and I don't think she's like me. But I definitely feel like I fit in here. So, like, I'm going to come to your place. He was like, Okay. It's like, you've adopted me now, so like I need to learn more. Yeah, that's my whole life. And my mom was a teacher, forever in New York. So it was just like, what else can we do? Like, we got more brain space. That's fine. We're going to fall on our head. We better learn some more before it all evaporates.
And I mean, obviously, continuing with our WWR events, but also Beyond Wrestling kind of grew their relationship with Chikara throughout 2018. And a lot of your appearances in Beyond Wrestling kind of came in conjunction by virtue of that relationship with Chikara, the match with the Rumble Bees against Joey Ryan and Laura James. Obviously, the Rumble Bees being an act that was put together at Chikara, wrestling Deonna Purrazzo at the
Yeah.
Clan Feuds event, at the Wrestle Factory, then the Chikara Showcase match at American Rana, and then the match with Penelope Ford at Extreme Warfare Revenge at the Varnum Armory. All the while, the Bird and the Bee is coming together as an act in Women's Wrestling Revolution. What is it like when you're presented differently in high-profile promotions? Does it send a mixed signal to the fans that it becomes confusing to follow? Is that up to you to try and fill in the gaps so that it becomes palatable, or do you just push certain things to certain people? How does that work? Because I always wondered about that. Because I only, a lot of times the limited feedback that I give people is the way that they're presented in the organizations that I work for. But it could be completely different, and you could have a high-profile wrestler with 5 different presentations in different companies.
Yeah. I think in one aspect or one facet, you have to have some sort of control over your IP and your story arc. So like Solo Darling as a journey, right? Like, you don't know what I'm doing here, 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 and here. You've got to focus on here. You got to focus on Beyond and WWR, and Quack's got to focus on Chikara. And I just have this like bug in me that needs to try and respect the wishes of all the high profile shows, because I don't want it to be confusing for the fans. And I still like to believe in this magic that they'll watch them and see a continuity. Like when you see Thor appear in a Hulk movie, like you see these crossovers and they still have that, maybe they got to play a little bit more of a dick today, but they still have that essence of them. And the essence of Solo should be consistent throughout the promotions, but you should always try to, give the wishes, right? Like, honor the wishes of the promoter and how they want to build, because we're just a piece of this larger puzzle that you're trying to tell this story in a complete fashion for the one day, and then for like the arc that you're building over like the course of the year leading to American Rana. So I just do my best to take pieces and go, okay, I'm in service to this match today, which is a larger piece of this puzzle here, and I can't forget what I just did here. So I somehow have to just try and make it all work and come together. It's exciting for me to have all those pieces in play to see what I come up with. And, sometimes it doesn't always stick. And sometimes you're just like, all right, I should have done more of that. And now I know for this time. But I think eventually I'll have, like, it'll come second nature. I hope.
How did the Bird and the Bee come together?
From you. It was so exciting. It's from you. We did a Cute Meet episode on The Talk when we talk about our cute meet. So I had just gotten out of a really serious tag relationship with Travis Huckabee. And I know I was kind of like, maybe I wasn't like fully feeling myself. And maybe I thought my mojo was gone. And like, here's DC and he comes, I think you and Willow would be good together. And I was like, what? Because in my head, I'm like, she's a babe. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm all flustered. And I just kind of let you do the talking on that, because I know how I can be sometimes, and not everyone's always ready for me full speed. So I was just kind of like, yeah, cool. Like, I think like if DC want to do this thing, like he'll talk to you about it. Like, it's fine. Like, it's cool. It's casual. I just got out of a thing. And we have our first match. And in my gut, I'm like ready to scream how excited I am, because I just felt this chemistry with her. And I was like, I love you forever, but you can't say I love you on the first date. It sounds weird. So I was just like hanging out, and I was like, cool, like, thanks for the match. Thank you so much. Like, that was all right. Like if you were down to like do that again, I'm cool for that. But like, I understand like you're not into tag stuff, because she had like gone into this thing beforehand. She wanted to let me know she's not like a committed tag type person. She likes to do singles wrestling. And so I was like, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, like I'm just not looking for anything serious right now either, but like, yo, you're cool. And she was like, I'd like to do that again. And I was like, oh, thank God, me too. I was like, that was so fun. And so then just snowballed from there. Just like easy. It's just easy. You saw that chemistry.
I saw the chemistry when you guys wrestled, and it took a few months for us to get it off the ground as a tag team.
And I was like, oh, she's a bird.
Because it can be tough scheduling wise too. Like, I know, fast forwarding a little bit, you ended up having a singles match with Britt Baker. That was originally supposed to be the Bird and the Bee against Britt Baker and Chelsea Green.
Ooh.
But Chelsea had signed. She was not able to fulfill her obligations before going to TV. It is what it is, but that's one of the things that can be really tough in independent wrestling is getting both people on the same page. What's kind of the trick for the Bird and the Bee? Or are you not on the same page? No, you guys are on the same page.
We're on the same page. She knows immediately, like, if I do something too, like, I don't even have to tell her sometimes that I'm looking at fabric online, and like, she knows. It's so good. She could tell by the meme I send of Officer Magnum where my emotions are. So we're really good at things that the other person isn't necessarily good at, which is awesome. So we combine our forces and our best. I love doing all like merch design and stuff. And sometimes we'll like spitball back and forth and I'll be like, all right. And then I'll just like get to work on that. And she'll have like lists of places we want to work and we try to map it out together. So we just always communicate, you know, especially when it's like, hey, I got to take a day and I won't be on my phone, because that's the thing you got to do now, especially, you know, in quarantines. So, so we just try to like do our best to tag in and out like in real life. And because that chemistry was so there and present, we vibed and like we're best friends, like ride or die best friends. We've had all these drives together and talks together, and then we moved closer together. And I thank you every day for it, because she's just wonderful.
Well, I think one of the marks of being an actual tag team is like a promoter can put two people together, but if they have an act and then they start getting booked with that act at another place, it's like, oh, that's legit. Like the Bird and the Bee is a thing now. Like it's not just this, you know, slap together random thing for WWR. Like the Bird and the Bee is a thing now. One of the things too is when I kind of look at, you know, it's not always American Raw. There's other tentpole events kind of throughout the year. And I always maybe look to that and say, what is it that I want to accomplish? What's lacking in independent wrestling right now? What's lacking maybe overall in professional wrestling? What is it that I want to try and accomplish with my vision of what wrestling is for this period of time? And it always kind of comes to like, if there's certain gaps in the availability of acts that kind of would fit into a certain division. So for example, there seemed to be like a huge lack of like women's tag teams. And so like that was part of putting together the tournament for tomorrow that year, where it was going to be, hey, we're going to get 8 kick-ass women's tag teams, or we're going to do a one-day tournament. And it's not just going to be random teams just to fill a lineup. Like tried and true actual tag teams. What was the tournament for tomorrow 2018 like for the Bird and the Bee?
Nerve-wracking. Officer Magnum and McMurray are very excited about something right now, by the way. So, I don't know.
Don't worry, we'll get to them.
It was very exciting, nerve-wracking, and we were working on our language together still. And I remember us watching the Twisted Sisters have this, like, they just know. They, like, didn't have to call too many spots, and they could read each other's minds. And we were looking at each other like, yo, we gotta do that. Whatever that is, let's work on that today. So we started to get more in the same page. And when we were working towards winning, it was like, what? I actually got a gift of the flyer put on like a foam board, so like it's, you know, it's forever. I can just like hang it up and it's above the mirror, and I love it because it's one of my favorite days in wrestling, like ever.
Yeah, I mean some pretty big matches with Davian and Vanette with as Black and Blue, then against Team Adams, Karen Q and Tasha Steeles, and then again the Twisted Sisters, Holiday and Thunder Rosa. They're no joke.
They're no joke. It was
In
so
the final.
fun.
I
Oh my God.
always try to work with them as much as possible. They're one of those situations where it's just like two people that are awesome, great wrestlers, cool to be around, like, which is great for the locker room and great for the energy, and it motivates. But it's just like one's here, the other's here, and it's just like the logistics of being a promoter. It's like that can be tough flight wise to have to pull it all together. But when you have something like a tournament, you can kind of justify the expenses. Well, it's like, well, so what if this flight costs $900? It's being spread out over the course of 3 matches. It's only like $300. I'd pay $300 for a flight, you know. But
It's rationalizing. It's good.
yeah, sure, yeah, no, whatever. But then obviously, and then that leading to the very next day, wrestling the men's tag team tournament for tomorrow winners in the Beaver Boys at Heavy Lies the Crown.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite matches.
Because John Silver's just an animal, and Alex Reynolds is pretty smart. But it takes, in this instance, 4 to tango. You guys more than held up your own, even as kind of a newer team at the time.
Yeah, we were just, I don't know, I just loved being there, and I was excited about it because kicks, and I just wanted to get beaten. I was like, yeah, just throw me, like, whatever, what did you come up with? That's fine, yes. Slam me through the mat. It's great. I was just like really excited to get my ass kicked.
Great. Oh, I mean,
here for it.
But sometimes that selflessness is what really makes for intriguing matches, because you have to be fearless, but you also have to be selfless and trust your opponent that, you know, they're not gonna be like abuse that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if it's like, you know, meaty dudes. But
Like,
I always feel like, let's do it. And I remember how we came up with like the lift spot. We were just like playing around with stuff, and he was like, I want you to do your kicks. And I was like, oh my God, me? Stop, please don't stop. I want to hear more. And so we came up with that spot. I was like, this is so fun. It was amazing. The whole 2 days was just like, it became like my favorite thing that I wanted to make tradition. Can I just always be at these, please? This is great.
well, and as luck would have it, though, you know, we came up with the concept, the treasure hunt tournament, first round match against Josh Briggs. Unfortunately, that was the day that Willow got hurt. I'll probably do one of these with Willow, so we don't really have to delve too much into her injury. But she was sidelined for a pretty significant period of time, which ended up creating kind of unexpected opportunities as a singles wrestler for the first season of Uncharted Territory.
Ooh, yeah. All of it bittersweet. I remember not knowing what to do when I found out she was injured. And I was just kind of like, I got the text in the morning and I was like, I just have to do something. I can't do nothing. And so we came up with the "it's probably fine" that we always say to each other, put it on a shirt to try and give her something, because I didn't know what else to do. And I thought the only thing I can do right now, other than be supportive for her and like, you know, be there with memes and like do as much as I can in the emotional front, is make myself the best I can be. So when she comes back, like, I'm her rock. Like, I can be there however she needs me, you know. And I've used this time as a singles wrestler to like take us further. Just like while she's healing, I just kept focusing on like, when she gets back, I'm going to be ready. What can I do to be more ready? What can I learn to make our matches better? Even though it's singles and the dynamics a little different, I just wanted to absorb as much as possible in that time. And when Uncharted Territories came around, I love your ideas just in general. Just, I love your ideas. And then like hearing you talk about it and then getting to be a part of it, it was just my absolute favorite thing that I've done. It's my absolute favorite thing. I love it. I love the week, you know, weekliness of it, and having a home up there in the north and then your car rides, and like we get used to it, even though it's like 5 hours sometimes. It's like, it doesn't matter. It was my favorite. And Nick Gage got to ride with us a lot. He's my
That's
favorite
what I talked about with Yuta. He had one good story that he wasn't sure whether or not he should have relayed, but he ended up relaying it. So all the more reason to go back and watch all the other episodes of Positive Contact.
Please check them out, everybody.
Are there matches or moments specifically from the first season of Uncharted that stand out?
Man, and I think my favorite thing to do of it was not just like have Uncharted and be like wrapped up in it, is I would come home and then like sometimes bug Jerry to see if it was like up yet, but you guys were so quick with it that it was usually up. And so I'd get home and get to then rewatch the show. And there are a handful of people, including Dickinson, that always took the time out to give me feedback, and Santel. And so my favorite part in general of it is getting home and being like, just watching it. And then other people are watching it too. And I would probably message them about this thing I love that they did, and this hold I loved, or like, how did you slap them inside out like that? Because I know they didn't make that jump on their own, like just random stuff that would come to mind. And then they would have like such good feedback, like, you did this great, you can expand on this, try this a little better, to like kind of hone my stuff. And the time that the guys took out to do that was really special to me. And I just really loved all the matches in general. Like, okay, you're giving me this person, like, let's do this. What can I do for them? I remember Alexia Nicole, like, I remember not knowing, and then she had come in because it was like the traffic and it's a faraway land. It was like, it's Narnia. So I was like, I am so sorry. I can feel that you're probably stressed. And just trying to like, all right, well, let's do you here. And she's like, but this, you do you. And I was like, no, like, let's, like, what do you want to do? Are you're building this new character? Like, all right, come on, like, slap me around. Like, let's do it. Let's go. And I just remember always having that gun-ho, not confidence as if I 100% believed I knew what I was doing, but the confidence to know I had a supportive group. We're all in it together. We're going to do the very best we can. Everybody's going to kill themselves to put on a great match. And I got all these amazing opponents for seasons just to kind of grow with and from and learn from.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about Uncharted for me, especially, you touched upon it with like doing the Shimmer shows, but like it really does create a community element where it's not just the wrestlers getting together every week, but it's the same fans that are getting together every week. And at some points, it almost feels more like a social club than it does a wrestling promotion, because there's going to be 50 people there that you know by their first name, and that's a really cool feeling to have that kind of camaraderie. But another thing that's really cool about Uncharted Territory, and now's probably a good time to remind everybody that Positive Contact's sponsored by Independent Wrestling TV, so head over to iwtv.live and sign up using promo code BEYOND to watch all two seasons, all 31 episodes from the 2 seasons of Uncharted Territory. The other thing that was really cool, and you kind of touched upon it, it's like when I was booking monthly shows, you're locked into a format, but by doing it weekly, there's so much more opportunity to experiment. So like you said, where if you're only appearing once in front of that same card once a month, not saying that you have to be selfish necessarily, but you need to do you. To have opportunities to wrestle somebody coming from Canada that, is brand new, to give them the opportunity. Well, the last 3 weeks, I got my shit in. Now it's time to, try and, feature somebody else. Did you feel like there was more options for creativity just out of the repetitions, or?
Oh yeah, I think all of us have a slight anxiety about constantly doing new things in the ring, and we're also told don't always do new things, like do the favorites, like you have to have specials and you have to have go-tos so that people are along with you on the ride and they know when you hook something and you do the thing, like that's a move that they know, so they feel like they know what's happening, like the Cena 5 or whatever, like, right, like your big moves. And so I love trying new stuff, like, and I think that comes from that, like, I really want to know all of the wrestling and not having that taught to me, but like spursed out over time as if it's an achievement unlocked on PS4. It's like, oh, now you know monkey flip. Surprise. And so every week kind of being like, you know what, I don't have to do that this time, or I could go for it, but I did it last week. And then so it just opens up this whole new playing field of like how to construct your matches, and maybe you find something along the way. Chris Stat being one of my favorites in that, is like, I do this and I've been doing this, is how I would phrase it. Like, I'm open to whatever, and just like, how about you, like, we do that back roll and you pick me up. I'm like, yeah, like just little things like that start to tweak it and change it, put some spice on it, like a Canadian destroyer. Like, that's all just like really fun, and it definitely felt like home. And Magnum was with me all the time, and so like,
we'll get to Magnum. We'll wrap it up with Magnum. Don't worry,
really,
we're not gonna leave Magnum out.
It's just always felt like home, and I know it felt like home to him too. So that was always really dope.
while we were still at Electric Haze, before we even made the move over to the White Eagle, I don't remember what match it was specifically, but I remember there being a moment where I was like, whoa, like Solo's coming out. Like, is it Solo or is it Hulk Hogan? Because like the place is shaking. Like there was like an atmosphere. It was just like wild, and it was like whoa, like it was that eureka moment. And that's when I knew it's like wow, like you can't manufacture that. You can try and put people in those positions, or sometimes you don't even need to put those people in those positions. But like it either happens or it doesn't. You can never know. And it was just like, but to me, it's like when you realize there's that eureka moment, you have to run with it. And specifically for 2019, I remember a match and then a big moment that were kind of crafted to trying to capitalize on that. The match being with David Starr at the Boston Secret Show, and then the moment obviously to give you a big win in front of the big crowd at American Rana.
Yeah, that was I love wrestling David Starr. What a presence in the ring. It was so electric. I was dead nervous too, because I was like, I just want you to like I want to input, yes, but like I want you to kind of like mastermind, and I just want to absorb how your brain works, which I get a lot when I'm given the opportunity to work with people like David Starr. It's like, please, yes. And of course they always want input or like what you do, and I'm like, yeah, but like, please, you tell me, and I'm happy to do everything. Yes. Can we go to the floor? Does that sound fine? Probably so. And some of those moments are very spontaneous too. Like, obviously I did that hot hands when I moved my hand from his foot. That was just reflex. Like, if you're thinking wrestle brain, you leave your hand, you take the thing and ow, and then you get kicked. But I just remember moving it, and like my reaction is a shoot where I'm like, oh God, like hit. So it was just like a very wild experience, and the crowd is just so amazing. And it was just so warm in there, and it was 1,000,000 degrees in there as well. But it was like warm and fuzzies as well in the inside. And so you feel that extra confidence of like going the extra mile or doing that or emoting louder because you feel like they're with you. I felt very grateful for those moments. I still have that belt, by the way.
You can auction it off. You can throw it in the garbage. I can fucking care less. So
it's like a Nickelodeon belt.
Great. Moving on. And then we got back with Uncharted Season 2, Willow back off the shelf, able to do some stuff with the Bird and the Bee. Maybe the highlight being the match with Team Tremendous.
Yes! I love Team Tremendous. I let her drive. Like, okay, what do you want to be for Halloween? I know I had my, like, I want to be like British Bulldog, and I got my Matilda, and I got like a whole thing, and I was
That's pretty sick.
I do want to do the braids. I was ready. I know how to do them. I'm here for it. And I was just like, 1, 2, 3, just do that. No, okay. And she was like, what if we're them though? They just got real serious. And like as it's coming out of her mouth, I'm like messaging Dan. I was like, can we please? And he thought it was great. And showing up with the Inception layers of Team Tremendous, I thought was also really great. And I just wanted to learn from those two so much. I just wanted them to like, yep, this is how we tag. Yes, it is. Like, I also wanted, because Willow had just come back, because Dan is great at pushing her, and was, if I'm correct, the one that got her to do the moonsault to begin with. So I was like, oh, great. They have this thing, and he's going to like big brother her, and we're just going to like go wild. And so for that was a really like, yes, we're back. And we have Team Tremendous to help us with this. This is great. And I just remember volunteering at the Get for taking it. I was like, please give that to me. I want that.
Who came up with the idea that you were going to get used as like a weapon to be like clotheslined like into Willow?
So, Dan had this one visual of using me as a weapon, and Bill was like, I don't know. I think so. Like, yeah, if that's what you want. So then when he brought it to me, I was like, oh yeah, we could do this. And you can just pick me up here. I was like, I don't know how you want to do that, but I'll hang on to whatever you tell me to hang on to. And And I was like, if you can go, as long as you want to go, just know if you're in the heat of the moment and you decide you're bashing me in like 20 times, like, I'm here for it. Don't worry about it. I'll be fine. I got enough meat here. We're good.
Yeah, Bill always just plays dumb about everything. Like, I don't know, I'm drunk. I ate a lot of meat. I don't know, cannibal corpse. But like, Bill's pretty. He knows what's up, right? Or
I believe so.
yeah,
He was
having.
like he was more quiet. He was the quieter of the two.
Well, I mean, when Dan gets going, that's why I haven't done one of these with him. I'd still be recording it.
yeah, me and Dan can just talk. But like, I liked that, Bill would just kind of pop in, see how the match was going. Okay. Like him and Magnum were in their own, and like we were all just talking.
All right, let's talk about Magnum. How did you meet Magnum? How did Magnum get introduced into wrestling?
He's just a part of it. I don't mean to weave him in and out. He's just like he's the other half of the three of us, I suppose. He's 50% with me, 50% with Willow. So I adopted him in New Rochelle, and he was about a year and a half. And then I took him out and went to wrestling training. Got him a Thunder vest. So his actual first independent wrestling name is Thunder Pup. He didn't get to do a live performance as Thunder Pup, but that was his first indie name, because he had the Thunder vest on, and he just never barked. Like, he barks more now when it's like, house lights are up than he ever did. He'd just like lay there at the Wrestle Factory while we did drills. And then I was like, what if he was like, do you think Thunder Pup would be like willing to be on a roster? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And then I started to think, how do I train a dog for wrestling? This is going to be my great work. So all he knows is wrestling terms. He can't do fetch or anything like that, but he could, make the tag, sleep while I do a jump over, right? Like a jump over the sleep. I tell him to take a knee out. I go down. I tell him arm drag. I grab him by the shoulder blades and take an arm drag. He does a drop kick cover. Like, that's where we're at in life. Promos are really fun for him because he really enjoys that. Now I bring out the phone and he's like, so he only became a part of my act with you.
Because he started as a police dog with Barksdale yeah, and then he was Officer Magnum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Officer Magnum, coined Officer Magnum.
Was there ever any kind of like fear, like, oh, like I'm not going to be the one out there with him during it? That
he knows them all so well,
mm-hmm.
where he like all he knows in life is the shelter that he had and professional wrestling. He's like a very unique type of Basset Hound Golden Retriever. And I think he just got used to the boys, and they all want to walk him. They were all so good to him. Like, everybody's amazing to him.
Oh, he gets so much affection at the shows.
I love it so much. Because then I'm like, thank you, because I love him. And I'm so glad that you do too. And so here we got. And Barksdale was just like a super chill dude that was, he'd sometimes sleep in the back before and after his match, and we'd have to wake him up. And Magnum would just go lay with him. And so I started to teach Barksdale how to, like, here, this is how you hold him, and this is how he's going to be. And so I would be at the stairs in the back, like, where the walkway is in the factory, at the stairs with, like, sausage. You got to get the good treats when you're doing stuff like this. And his debut comes through the curtain, and you see this, and the crowd goes wild, and he goes right back. He gets a bunch of chants, and he's like, ooh, I'm going to hard pass. So we had to teach him, like, step by step on how to do it in front of a live audience. But then with you, he just came out with me because I was like, he's my dog. Everyone knows he's my dog. We're good.
And then he was convinced to do the donut match where he teamed with Puff and Dick Justice at the end against the Colony.
Yes.
And I believe he got the pinfall on that match.
He did. So far, Officer Magnum is undefeated. He also holds the mid-card title for XSW. He's undefeated totally in his career.
So I recently told this story when I had Puff on, but I didn't realize that Dick Justice had a gluten allergy. But the ring was covered in like food and donuts and stuff like that. did Officer Magnum indulge in any of the donuts that day, or was he a good boy?
He does love sweets, and that's probably my fault because he didn't want the dog treats I had when I first adopted him, so I cut up a bunch of marshmallows to train him. It's totally fine. It's probably fine. So I'm sure he had like a lick here and there, but like he's working, he's fine. Just get him a little frosting.
Probably the height of his involvement was when Mark Sterling attempted to kidnap him.
Yes. Very confident in his demeanor that he was not going to get thrown off a balcony.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say my boy is very confident. I really love that all the fans were right in front of the door like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't know where this is going, but no, that was really great. I like his very calm and collected, or sometimes apathetic kind of response to things. Like, I'm not going to freak out yet because I don't see a balcony. When I see it, then maybe I'll...
I was the one freaking out because I think I don't remember if I introduced the idea or Sterling introduced the idea, but then I remember we did the locker room meeting, and as soon as I was done saying it, I was just like, we're done. Like, this is not going to fly. Like, this is like pushing the envelope in the wrong way, and people are going to be legitimately upset, even though in reality there's very, very, very little margin for error because of the way it was going to be acted out. But the way that it was going to be perceived, I mean, there were a couple of people that were like extremely upset by it, which I think is justifiable. But again, like, obviously we would never do anything to intentionally put anybody that works on our shows in harm's way, whether they're a person or an animal. And sometimes it's those moments where it's like, oh no, like this is going off the rails, that can kind of create the excitement. Although never for Magnum, because like you said, he always seems kind of apathetic. So
he's definitely the reason I'm calm at all.
Mm-hmm.
That I am this calm. He's definitely my ESA, and he's just always like, "Yeah, okay, this is what we're doing today." And I'm like, "Really? Are you?" So I got very used to him and his demeanor. I'm like, "Dogs are just like this, right? Like you just teach them to do like drop downs, and like I had him doing like heat to me in a buckle once, and we were practicing like corner drills. Like that's everybody's dog, no." So like I knew he was gonna be cool with it with Sterling. Because, he's like, yeah, what's up, brother? Just going to hold me a while? Just don't leave my legs hanging. That's all I ask. Got a lot of legs.
Let's jump back to the Bird and the Bee. What were some of the bigger matches that you guys had as a tag team outside of Beyond and WWR?
We had the title match for the tag team for the Campeones de Parejas at Chikara. That was a wild and fun match. Because I love wrestling. Deppin and Travis and I beat each other like we're siblings for realsies. So you could always tell when there's like a kick or a headbutt or something, there's somebody in the front that's like, does somebody owe somebody money? But I like that chemistry that we have. So that was definitely one of our favorites. We had a handful at Shimmer. We got to bring the Bird and the Bee to Shimmer. And that's just wild to think that we just started it and then we had this like cute meet, and then she wanted to take it places, so we were like, yeah, of course I want to take it places. How do we do that? There's not really a lot of tag teams right now that are like quote unquote married where they're like taking that act on the road. There's not a ton of them.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at as far as being able to, is it just two random wrestlers that are put together, or is it an actual act?
Yeah. And so that excites us too, for the love of where tag wrestling comes from, and like being with that person and taking it on the road.
That personally felt like a really big endorsement for kind of what we had put together at that weekend, specifically for Shimmer, to see you and Willow together as the Bird and the Bee, to see Skylar and Davienne, which was an act that came out, just necessity being the mother of invention through uncharted territory. The Sea Stars obviously probably owe the fact that they were born as sisters to being a tag team more so than their work in Beyond Wrestling. And then to see Statlander in that picture too, though, it was really cool to see how many of our wrestlers were represented in Shimmer, because it always felt like there was a period of time where it's like, oh, you the wrestler for Shimmer. That's why I was asking if it was clicky earlier, because it always seemed like a period of time it's like you either wrestle for Shimmer or you don't wrestle for Shimmer, and it kind of created two separate rosters within independent wrestling of the women's wrestlers. So like that was like a big like breaking through the ceiling moment for me to see like, wow, like a lot of these wrestlers, I know how talented they are. Now the rest of the world gets to see them on a platform that's been well established, like you said, for so many years.
Oh yeah. It was huge for us. It was huge for us as a group, as the group of us where we got to take that picture and just kind of be like, this is awesome. Like we're all like from home. And like I remember being like the only one in the locker room. Not to say I didn't know the girls or anything like that, but like from where I come from, like I was like representing my own little thing there. And then, you know, like of course I had like Leva and Mia and everybody that knew me, which was nice. But having like your people there that you're seeing weekly or seeing monthly that you're traveling with, like this is our carload essentially in general. Like this is awesome. We come from beyond. Like it's like it was so cool. And it isn't clicky in a way, but it is hard to get into Shimmer and to stay, because you gotta like get there, and then they are understanding, oh, maybe this person and this person aren't peanut butter jelly in the ring, we'll try them with somebody else, let's see how we can get them to their best. And then they're very supportive in that journey, where even if it doesn't work out, like they move on or this and that, like the person, they're just so supportive of trying to get that person to their ultimate self. That it was just a wild weekend seeing all of us there. So I just loved it. We had matches there that we can't wait to see.
That's the wrestling that I like, though, is the wrestling where it is, hey, this is what this person or these people excel at. Let's really make sure that they get to showcase that. I got one more question, I think, before we'll let you have some final words. Say whatever you're going to want to say. But WrestleMania weekend, you had a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about?
It feels like this weird fog. It doesn't feel real. It feels like an alternate timeline somehow. And yet somehow when everything was starting to kick off, I felt like, man, is Mania going to happen? Like before it started to get to like quarantine, when it was just like, there's this coronavirus. And I was like, oh, and it's here now? I don't know. And I think I'm sad in general for like all of us as a whole, that we all had all these bookings and we only had like one or two at first, but like Willow and I stayed on it and we were like, we want to be here. We'll, you know, and then we got like 6 or 7, like up to 7. One of them being I was going to get to judge at karaoke. So it's like, oh, and then, you know, when you're down there, it's like Kaiju Big Battle is on my bucket list because Kaiju Big Battle. So like, I was like, oh, I'm sure I can pick that up. Like, you know, so that would have brought me to 8, which last year WrestleMania for me was huge. It was so vital to me, and I was so grateful for just every opportunity. Tagged with Statlander and like just like all the matches that kind of came together, and it'd be like, hey, if you know, we have a spot here if you want to like jump into this. So Mania last year was so wild that I really was looking forward to this year. And I have this weird like calm, because I feel like when my friends get upset, I just start to get real neutral about things, that I just know it'll come in time. We'll all be better for it. And we're probably going to have a better Mania week whenever we get to, because we're all pent up as hell. So we're probably going to see spots and do things that, you know, we didn't have the oomph to do before, because we're like, never know when.
Already giving me anxiety. There's nothing even planned as far as a return, and I'm already like having that sinking feeling like, oh God, they're going to go out there and kill each other.
I know. And I keep telling everyone else that too. Like, hey, calm down. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But I know I'm going to buck out.
Now, I do have another question I want to add in, because I always feel like I'm like lost when I'm doing my locker room meetings in the moment. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, I never got him. And then other times I come out of it, I'm like, damn, like, I think I got him too amped up. Like somebody's going from the top rope to the floor tonight. And like, sometimes I'm like, oh no, like I shouldn't have done that. Like they're way too amped up. Like people are ready to like kill each other just to get through the next 2 hours. Way too much. But like Quack has like some pretty legit locker room meetings. So what are some of the best locker room meetings that you ever had a chance to sit in?
Oh man. I think it's like, yours are very good too, by the way, because yeah, no, like between he has a very theatrical way of putting it together, and it's not grandiose in a negative way. It's like church. It's
It
like going
is.
to wrestle church, and like you just feel important. like your little thing is going to matter. So your spot, your thing, whatever you're doing on the show, it all matters, which it does. You should always feel that way. But, you know, professional wrestling can be very self-deprecating on the cash. So I like when he does the Queen speech, Freddie Mercury speech, and he goes into us feeling that energy as Freddie Mercury. And he does the whole thing about going out for Live Aid and like how they got the gig, and you're just on this road and you don't have to tell me about, if you start talking about music, first of all, I'm already like hooked, because drumming is the girl that got away from me. So I'm just like, yes, I can be, you're right, I have this yellow jacket, like, of course. So that's one of my favorite ones that he does. And I think that's going to be my favorite one that he does, like, absolutely. And Somebody Came to See You, that one too. I don't know if you heard that one. Where it's like,
That's a really, really important one. He's got a knack. Sometimes I'll give my meetings and it's like, 10 people have their heads down, whatever the case may be. He has a way to engage every single person that's in that room, even if they're not on the show, even if it's just the crew.
yeah, he gets everybody. And he has been tying into, and I know he has like a favorite, so he'll have like a bulk speech that he covers, and then he brings something topical in from what's happening with our current roster, or something that he wants to tie in and cover and make sure, like, hey, last week or whatever week or in training this, and I want you to know, like, this is okay, this is valid, and this is how we're going to like make this awesome today. So it's very encouraging. You just want to put on your sparkly pajamas and jump off of something.
Cool. I feel good ending there. Let's get some plugs in again, the best way that everybody can support you for the time being.
Yes. My favorite thing to work on is Patreon, patreon.com/solodarling. Instagram is what you'll always find me on. It's @regulationSoloDarling.
What kind of content's on the Patreon?
I do everything from dog videos and bloopers and training videos with them, to the thread mines, which is all the work I'm doing. And then, since now I'm sewing professionally for other professional wrestlers,
that's
and
awesome.
making their gear. Please inbox me any professional wrestlers that need a thing, because I am taking commissions, and I do book them like shows. So you're not like, yo, where's my gear? It's been 5 months. I want to make sure you have a timetable based on the work it's going to take me. So my time and how quickly I can make the gear is what I do. And I like to share that with people. There are seamstresses on my Patreon that are like, I'm trying to make wrestling gear for my friend. I'm like, here you go, here's kick pads. So I put all my patterns up there. I do journal entries, which are fractured statements, which I started when I fractured my orbital bone the first time, and I was making no sense because I was on medicine. So I do a lot of like, more of that like hippie side of me, journal entries. And the top tier, you're also going to get all of that, photo sets. You're going to get a discount on my Big Cartel. So everybody gets discount codes on our Big Cartel. And you get the bonus content, you get photos, you get anything that we put into making the Bird and the Bee the talk. You get early access, at least by a week in advance before we release it on SoundCloud for free. So that way you can hear it pretty close to, if not the night that we record it. There's tons of stuff. And I'm always taking requests too. We have a Discord channel. So all of our patrons are on this Discord channel where we play Mario Kart, and they get to hear me curse in Spanish a lot because I never win. So please, you get my friend code if you're on Patreon. We'll play some Switch. You'll hear me get real mad at how bad I am at video games. So that's that one. The Big Cartel is www.solodarling.com, because I have the domain name, but it is a house for the Bird and the Bee. It's got all our new stuff on there. We're getting some phone cases, like it's wild stuff on there. And most of us do the Instagram, which is @BirdandBeeXD, and @RegulationSoloDarling, @OfficerMagnum_K9.
Cool. I definitely gotta get Willow on here next, and then if we can maybe see eye to eye as far as a booking fee, maybe I can swing Magnum too. So
yeah, he's tough now, being undefeated. I think at this quarantine time, he's thinking like, well, maybe I'm worth 2 pizzas.
He wouldn't eat 2 pizzas, would he?
Oh, if I didn't stop him, for sure. Oh my God. When we would go intermission at Chikara, and there were like kids that we'd have like these busloads of kids come, and I'd walk them, but then I'd let him off the leash because he knows what he's doing. I turn around and the kids are all handing him pieces of pizza, and he's just got like meme worthy amounts of slices, and I'm like, wait, no, oh my god, and I'm like, thank you so much, thanks for the, I'm like,
thanks kids. Yeah.
Don't, I have to clean that up later.
Right. Plus, if you want him to run spots, he's gonna stay in fighting shape.
Yeah,
right.
He's gotta have a good diet. We share that diet.
Gotta stay sharp in this time off. So
yep.
Cool.
Chicken and sweet potatoes.
Cool. I appreciate all the time. Yeah, chicken and sweet potatoes. Yeah, followed by two $40 orders for Popeye's fried chicken that are sitting on the floor of my basement too. So
yeah, but then we do some crunches and it's fine. So we're
yeah, I don't know. I really like. I have good days and bad days. I'm sure everybody else does too. I started off feeling a lot more well adjusted to this, and the longer it goes, the less adjusted I am, which doesn't really make sense. But this has been so cathartic for me to be able to do the Positive Contact series. And I'm like, I was so blah all day today. And like, it's just so nice to be able to connect with somebody else that's really passionate about wrestling, talk about the things that we like, even if we can't experience them firsthand right now. And this has done so much to help keep me in a better mood. So I hope it's the same for you. I hope it's the same for everybody else that's tuning in, listening to Positive Contact. And I'm definitely going to make it a priority to get Willow on one of these as soon as possible.
Yes, I've loved this. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me.
All right, cool. I'll see you soon, Solo.
All right, see you soon. Bye.